OK, we're joined now by the Reform Party's Deputy Leader, Richard Tice, who is the MP for Boston and Skegness, and who joined us now from central London. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us. We were just talking in the introduction about how there are some parallels to be drawn between people in your party and people in the Trump administration. Your professional background is in real estate. Now, that is a clear parallel with President Trump. But I'd like to ask you what your eureka moment was that told you that your calling wasn't in real estate, it was in politics.
I've always had an interest in current affairs and politics, but I always said to myself, I come from a real estate family and I wanted to get stuck in, hopefully make some money, and then if I had some time to give something back to society, to community, to the country in some way, then that was the plan. And in a sense, all went very well. I ran a big multinational listed property company listed on the London Stock Exchange. I ran that for 4 years. We tripled the share price. And then along came the Brexit referendum. And I guess that was my eureka moment, where I felt there was a really important choice for the country. I had a very clear view that we should leave a bureaucratic sort of monster of a quango and be an independent sovereign nation, free to make its own decisions and to essentially sort of embrace the opportunities of the whole world without being sort of kowtowing to people in Brussels. So that was the eureka moment. History moves on. You never quite know how things play out. But that really was a defining moment for me. And as I did that, I left running a big listed, property company, because you can't do both. You can't get in politics and run a listed company. But I've maintained a close interest in real estate. I've got some industrial real estate interests. And do you know what? That actually really helps. Keeps your feet on the ground. You understand what's really going on.
Indeed. And I think President Trump would say the same sort of thing, that, real life work experience is something that politicians absolutely should have. Your party leader, Nigel Farage, will probably be quite familiar to a lot of our viewers, because he's been on the political scene internationally as well as domestically for quite a long time, the champion of Brexit. And at that time, he led the party UKIP. Now, you were previously chairman of the Brexit Party, now rebranded as the Reform Party, or the deputy leader. Just tell us, for the benefit of our international audience, what does Reform stand for?
Reform actually stands, to be honest, for saving the United Kingdom. We are, as a nation, we're in financial trouble, we're in cultural trouble, and we're in societal trouble. And we believe in the key British values of family, community, country. We believe that we've got to change the nature of our policies in the UK. We've got to cut vast amount of wasteful government spending with a sort of UK equivalent of Doge. We've got to cut daft regulations imposed on us primarily by the EU. That allows us the space to cut taxes, to make work pay, and to make risk-taking pay. Many of your listeners and viewers will be entrepreneurs, will be risk takers, business owners. And you've got to make taking risk worth it. And if people feel that it's too much like hard work, it's too difficult, the regulations are too burdensome, the costs are too high, then people will say, I can't be bothered, I'll go somewhere else. And that's the challenge the UK faces. So we think if you do those things, and then if you've got to make the nation work for British citizens. And that means you've got to control your borders. You've got to get your own people enthused and motivating to make work pay. And if you do all of that, then you can make people better off again. And that's what we've lost. We've got no growth in this country. We're flatlining at best. Once you factor in the mass immigration that we've had in recent years, everybody's getting poorer per person, per month, per year. And that's not a happy recipe.
Sure. I mean, just for the benefit, again, of our viewers who might not be familiar with the British political landscape, you're doing well in the polls. Reform doing particularly well amongst the 16 to 24-year-old age bracket. I don't know if you've got any comments on that, what the appeal is. But on the other hand, you have your critics, and the Conservative peer and election expert Lord Hayward says your party is regarded by a lot of people as being racist. I wonder how you respond to criticism like that.
Well, we're leading in the polls, in many polls across the political spectrum. And I think that what tells you is that people are not interested in these sort of juvenile, ridiculous jibes from our political enemies. Look, that's the nature of politics. They're jealous of our success. They're jealous of the fact we have sensible policies. We're just going to deliver by hard work. We're going to work harder than anybody else. We're going to have the best policies, and we're going to have the best candidates at elections. We've got elections, local elections in the UK this May. We've then got elections next May in Wales and Scotland. Our next general election will probably be in 2028 or 9. And look, at the end of the day, we're just going to actually roll our sleeves up, get stuck in, and people don't vote for mainstream parties that make people poorer. And one of the key differentiators between us and the two main political parties in the UK, being Labour and the Conservatives, both of those parties are obsessed with the ludicrous net stupid zero, I call it. Net zero is the greatest act of financial self-harm ever imposed on the British people by the British political establishment class. And we're standing against that. We're saying we'll scrap it. It's a disaster. It's making people poorer. It's not saving CO2. Not that CO2 is a problem, by the way. CO2 actually is plant food. It's not a poison. And this debate is now raging in the UK, and we're winning it. And I think people like a bit of honesty for some people who've been around the block, who've got a track record of success, tell it as it is. And look, of course, the nature of politics in any democracy, people will disagree. They'll shout and scream and try to smear us. We're above that. Nobody can cancel us. We just crack on.
Here at Al Arabiya, we've spoken to quite a lot of people in the new Trump administration. We've spoken quite extensively to Elon Musk's father on 3 or 4 occasions now. One of the things he said, and we've also heard from his son, is the idea that the Reform Party needs a new leader. And you'll have been perhaps surprised by a tweet that went out in January by Elon Musk saying the Reform Party needs a new leader. Farage doesn't have what it takes. I mean, that's probably not very helpful, is it? Let's have a look. There's the tweet there on your screens. Have things improved, would you say, in terms of ties between your party and Elon Musk?
Well, wouldn't life be boring if we agreed on everything? There'd be nothing to talk about. Look, Mr. Musk is a brilliant entrepreneur. I'm a very happy customer of a number of his fine products, including a Tesla. But on that particular issue, we just don't agree. We think that he was wrong on that. Nigel Farage is the best-known politician, and he will be a great Prime Minister of this country, and I'm convinced, for the reasons I've mentioned just earlier in the interview, that he'll be the next elected Prime Minister. And look, we push on. Of course, they've been in touch since, and you can agree to disagree amicably with people that are your friends. And as I repeat, life would be very dull if we all agreed on everything. So, look, we just push on. We are making great progress. We're raising money. Obviously, all political parties need to fundraise. We're raising money from former Conservative donors who've given up on the Tories. And just this week, we announced the defection to our party of 29 locally elected councillors from different parties and from independent parties. And that, again, is just a sign of the progress we are making.
How much contact do you and your party have with the new Trump administration? And just let us know, have you met Elon Musk or President Trump?
No, Nigel Farage, our leader, has been driving all of those relationships. And obviously he's in regular touch with various parts of the Trump administration. Now they're in office, moving at extreme pace. There's lots of lessons we can learn. I just touched on the Department for Government Efficiency that's being led by Elon Musk. I'm hopeful that will lead the way in showing what can be done. We've got a a bloated government here with obscene levels of wasteful state spending, and we've got to cut it back, because if we don't, you can't keep at any level, whether it's your personal budget, your business budget, or when you're running a country, you can't keep spending more than you're earning. If you do, eventually you go bust, you go bankrupt, because the lenders won't keep lending to you anymore. And I repeat, the UK is in serious financial trouble unless we change course. And that's the message we're putting out to people. And I think people recognise the honesty with which we say it, and the recognition that our policies of cutting regulations, scrapping net zero, tight control on immigration, because actually, if you control your labour supply, if you're short of labour, it's a really good thing, because the price of labour goes up, or businesses invest in capital equipment to replace it. It's literally basic economics. It's like textbook stuff. And that's a good thing, because that means your productivity goes up. We talk a language that business people understand, that folk on the ground understand, not the waffle that we get from the establishment elite in Westminster in central London.
So who would you like to see coming into the United Kingdom, and who would you like not to see coming in?
We believe in smart immigration, where highly skilled people, highly qualified, who want to come and work, who want to integrate in numbers that can be sensibly absorbed into communities, and who want to speak the language. And you can do that. We've done that successfully in the past. We did it in the 80s and 90s. The economy was growing at 2.5% to 3.5% almost every year. So if it ain't work, don't fix it. Sorry, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And the reality is we've had mass immigration over the last couple of years, the majority of whom were not coming here to work. And that means that those who are here, who are earning and paying tax, are suddenly being required to fund a load of benefits for people who didn't want to come to work. That's not fair, that's not sustainable, and under our leadership, that will stop. I repeat, smart immigration is a great thing, but you need to control the population, you need to limit the population. We've never had more people than we've currently got in the UK. We've got plenty of people. We've just got to get many more of them skilled up, trained up, and back into work.
Mr. Tice, one of your own MPs, a man by the name of Rupert Lowe, is reported to have told a journalist, and do correct me if I'm wrong, that Reform is, quote, a protest party led by the Messiah. Now, it sounds a little bit like he's veering off the party line. Nevertheless, Elon Musk seems to like him. What do you think the appeal is?
Look, everybody has their own individual appeal, but Mr. Lowe we've parted company with him from our party. And look, we just push on. We're a great team. We're working hard. And you know what? It's teams that win elections. It's not individuals. And there's a by-election coming up for a constituency in early May. We're going to be fighting that very hard. That'll be a two-horse race. We may well win that. And we just keep making progress from there. As I say, I repeat the clear thing, which is with the right policies and the hardest work and the experience that we've got under the leadership of Nigel Farage, the most experienced political campaigner in the United Kingdom, we can achieve extraordinary things. And there's a lesson for all politicians around the world. If you make your people poorer, if you impose things onto them like mass immigration or net stupid zero that nobody voted for, don't be surprised if you become unpopular and then you get voted out.
Just before we move on to sort of some of the other international stories and to get your party and your perspective on those, I just want to ask you, just wrapping up our discussion about Elon Musk and the like, do you see a chance of Elon Musk somehow or other becoming president of the United States in the future?
Oh, I have no idea. That's way beyond my pay grade. Who knows? Who knows? But I do think that the world actually needs more successful business people being able to, in a democratic way, help run countries. Because I actually think that countries should be run, the profit and loss and balance sheet of a nation should be run as you run a company. You've got to earn more than you spend. You've got to grow. You've got to make, in this case, you've got to make your voters, your taxpayers, happy in the same way that as a leader of a company. You need to make your shareholders happy. Otherwise, guess what? They're going to fire you. So yeah, I'm a big fan of successful business people through the democratic process coming in and helping run companies. And as a successful business person myself, the people who voted for me, they really respect the fact that I've got that track record of success, and I think that's a really good thing. And we need to celebrate success. We need to celebrate making money. We need to celebrate hard work. These are all great things.
You painted a picture of a pretty bleak situation faced by the UK, certainly domestically, economically. And I know on the campaign trail in the run-up to last year's UK general election, you talked about Starmageddon, painting a bleak picture of what life will be like under Sir Keir Starmer. But he has achieved something that, you know, not many politicians do, which is pretty unanimous support from the whole political spectrum on the issue of Ukraine, and his statesmanship and his leadership on that particular issue. Perhaps you disagree and don't think he deserves that, but I'd like to ask you for your thoughts on that, and also ask you what your party's position is with regards to how to end the war in Ukraine.
Well, one of the joys of leaving the European Union and Brexit is that the Prime Minister of the UK, in this case Sir Keir Starmer, is able to help, in a sense, bridge the gap between the United States under a Trump administration that doesn't like the European Union, understandably, but we have relations with European nations, so that gives an opportunity under the key defensive alliance of NATO is the critical alliance, but quite properly, nations have got to pay their way. They've got to pay at least 2%. In truth, that's not going to be enough. We live in a dangerous geopolitical world, but fundamentally, the United States is the critical strategic ally for the United Kingdom. We must always hold that relationship strong, both from a defence point of view and our biggest single trading partner. And look, with regard to Ukraine, everybody wants peace. Everybody wants the killing to stop. The difficult thing is how you get there. There's huge pressure on so many people. There's massive pressure on President Zelensky. No one can imagine the thousands of difficult decisions that he's had to go through every day, every week, every month, as his own people are sadly dying almost every day. Likewise, President Trump's got pressure. He's got pressure. He promised his electorate that he would end this war. That's what he's trying to do. People like politicians that actually deliver on their promises. But what we learned is when you've got, let's remember, most conflicts and wars end up in some form of negotiation, always difficult, always tense, always involving challenging compromises, uncomfortable compromises. Those negotiations are best done behind closed doors. They're best done where you've got all the cards on the table. And our position at Reform is we support the aspirations to get to peace. And I'm not going to criticize world leaders that are right on the at the sort of the front line of those negotiations. We wish them well. I'm very keen that one of the cards on the table is the issue of the frozen Russian state assets, $300 billion worth in the West. That's a critical part of the negotiations, amongst others. And just over 12 months ago, I donated a 5-figure sum personally, bought a 4x4 pickup truck, filled it with other volunteers with first aid medical supplies, drove it to Ukraine, gave it to frontline soldiers, met the people designing the latest drone weapons and software. And I saw firsthand mums weeping over the graves of their sons and their husbands in a cemetery. So I'm very supportive. We're very supportive of Ukraine and its efforts to see off the aggressor of Mr. Putin. But,
okay.
Life is not easy. And we're 3 years into this war, and it absolutely, however difficult, it must be right to try for peace.
Indeed, and there's another major conflict that President Trump is also trying to broker, and it was our top headline in this program today. I'm talking about what's happening in Gaza, where it looks like the ceasefire has all but been shredded, and the killing continues. What's your party's position with regards to Gaza's future?
Well, it's not just Gaza's future, of course, it's actually Israel's future. It's the future of how do you get peace in that region, which has been so difficult for so long. And again, actually, President Trump coming in with a completely different idea from left field, and whilst immediately he was criticised, at least he had a vision. At least he had the courage to say, well, here's a bold vision. If you don't like my idea, what's your idea, folks? And I think it's incumbent on people to say, we've got to come up with something better. Fundamentally, as I've said on numerous occasions, Israel has the right to defend itself. October the 7th was absolutely appalling, and Hamas should not be allowed to have any form of role in governing Gaza. And the simple reality is that Hamas should return all of the hostages, both those alive and sadly some who are already dead. They need to return all of those hostages immediately to Israel, and then this conflict will stop. It's as simple as that. So, and I think then the question is, well, where does it go from here? And I think there's everybody's kind of come to that table. Again, not easy, but the way to stop the killing is to return the hostages.
Just lastly, you mentioned this yourself, the next general election in the United Kingdom probably going to be in 2029, could be before, you never know. Where do you see your party, the Reform Party, at the point of that next election?
Well, if we carry on working hard with the right policies, that's our intention. And if I'm right about the regrettable decline financially of the country, then we've got a really, really good chance of winning the election outright and forming the next government under the leadership of Nigel Farage. And I think I've got great confidence we can turn it around. I've got a simple expression, which is that a bad boss can ruin a good company in about 2 years, but a good boss can turn around a failing company equally in 2 to 3 years. And that's the optimistic vision and hope that we encourage people with.
All right. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us here at Al Arabiya News. The Deputy Leader of the Reform Party, Richard Tice. Thank you very much indeed.